Okay. Uncle Maat, Ujad, Sineb Neb, ETE Mutep. Alright? To all the Africans in the diaspora. So tonight, this is a relatively late video for me to be uploading and making tonight. But nevertheless, we're gonna continue dropping this hot fire. If you have not watched my last video on my YouTube page, get your ass off this motherfucker. Take your ass on my motherfucker page and go watch my last video that's entitled Beyonce Does Not Care About You. Alright? So we dropping fire, straight fire, you know what I'm saying, straight from the survival skulls. You dig? Alright? With that video, and we're gonna do the same with here. This video probably gonna be shorter than that video. Alright? But with no guarantees, you know, give you my disclaimer. As I always say, if my passion takes over, the ancestors decide to come through, they gonna come through, and I'm letting them have their way and let them say what they need to say through me. Alright? So, with that being said, alright, so you see the title, you know what I'm saying, of this video, what it's hitting for. A couple weeks, 3 weeks ago to a month ago, I titled a video named Solar Intermingling. And within that video, surprisingly, with the same shirt, and I've talked about the Akashic records of the Tamu and the Yacuub theory and how they correlate with each other. So this video, I know the reason why I'm doing this video because I understand that the sound pickup on that video was very shitty. All right, I understand I'm doing these videos off my phone. All right, so however the sound picks up, it picks up. If it don't, and I always go back to rewatch my videos, see what I need to clear up on, what I need to reiterate, what I need to establish more in depth and whatnot, and I go and we make a video to further more in depth and explicate my disposition on previous videos. All right, so like I said, you see what we hitting for with this video today. So me and my brother, we had a conversation a couple nights ago, and we were talking about the Tamu, and we were talking about well, actually, I was explicating to him how the Yacuub theory is not a theory anymore. It's becoming more factual. All right? And I'm going to prove to you how. Because we act out what we remember. All right? We act out what we remember, whether consciously or subconsciously. All right? So, with the Tamu, right? We have Akashic records. They have Akashic records. Okay? What we call Akashic records is what they call in science terminology RNA within the DNA. Because RNA is your messenger codes that you could be able to unlock, and also it tells you what your DNA structure is going to be like, what you're going to be like. All right, so RNA is your messenger codes, right? But on the solar level, we call that Akashic records. Okay, and also to denote that your RNA codes are also responsible for your genes and your allele makeups and your personality traits. All right. So with the Tamu and their Akashic records and how it links to the Yacuub theory, if you don't know what the Yacuub theory is, it's basically a mad African scientist who went on this island and started to experiment on the African to be able to make a being that's lighter and more degenerate than the than the pure African, right? Who has melanin. Okay, so he finally makes that that creation and sends him or her out into the world for repayment, for retribution, from it's his civilization for discarding him. All right, so how is the Yacuub theory no longer a theory? Well, back to the Tammuz Akashic records, they remember a lot of things. Okay? They remember a lot of things. One of the things that they remembered is how they were created. Okay? So, how do you know that they are replaying their memories, right? Watch your sci-fi movies. Watch your sci-fi TV shows. You will always, 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 always see a mad scientist somewhere in your sci-fi videos. There's always a science motherfucker going rogue. Okay? And usually they'll have an apprentice there to help them, right? Let's take, for example, Frankenstein, right? In the movie Frankenstein, either the old version or new version, you have a mad scientist, a mad scientist or a scientist. He don't even have to be mad, just a scientist, period. Okay? Who has an apprentice who helps him put in, firstly, restruct together a creature, a creation. You get that esoterically. You get that from the Assyrian or the Asar Heru and Aset storyline. Okay, because remember, if you study the Assyrian story, right, or mythology, Ast or Aset, she goes and collects her husband's dismembered body and put them together. All right. So after putting together this body of Frankenstein, then the scientist or the mad scientist with his apprentice or not, depending on what version of Frankenstein you're watching, have him or her, or him if he's by himself, put in a life force of essence back into this body to make him alive. And then once he goes alive, you hear the scientists say, "It's alive, it's alive, it's alive," right? So that's what you're seeing in a lot of these sci-fi movies, or even in your comic books. You know what I'm saying? My mind is going blank right now, so excuse me for that. To give an examples in your comic books, if you want to know where these their Akashic records is being on display in your local comics, which is Marvel or DC or anime, just hit me up. You know what I'm saying, on Facebook, Heru Jahuti Ra, in my inbox, and I can get you that ASAP. Right now, another way that they are displaying or showing us their subconscious, their Akashic records, is also not only with these sci-fi movies that display mad scientists recreating a creature, or a scientist creating a creature and have it come alive to wreak havoc for the scientist's retribution. But you also see AI movies, okay? Like The Terminator, or more famously, the Will Smith movie, I, Robot, or just in general, any AI movie you could think of, because the whole concept of the AI movies, okay, is to show that someone created a machine or something that has potential to be barbaric once it knows its environment, right? And it can go rogue. Okay? Perfect example. Perfect example. Ultron. Ultron. Watch the movie Age. This is perfect example as well. Watch the movie Age of Ultron. You see Tony Stark creating Ultron. Okay? But Ultron not only creates himself, but takes Jarvis with him and goes rogue. Okay? So you see that theme going on, that and Tony Stark is a scientist. You see that same thing going on, that a scientist created something. Or let's even say this. A scientist can create a creation or something that's AI, and it can be meant for something good, but it still goes rogue. Now, why am I saying this? Why am I saying this? Ultimately, because you have to understand history. You have to understand history. Us Moors, okay? We went up there to the Caucasus Mountains, Asia Minor, Asia Major. We went to Spain, and we helped civilize our creations. We attempted to do so. So we created them as Africans, but we attempted to create it to civilize them. And in the process of us civilizing, we taught them what we knew, what we thought. Okay, that they would take our African solar ascensions or African solar systems, right, or spiritual systems, and abide by them. They took our information, our alchemy, they ran with it, and they not only did they learn, but they went rogue. And not only did they went rogue, but they decided to combat us, right? So also, if you pay attention with the Age of Ultron, with Will Smith, I, Robot, and with your sci-fi movies and TV shows, sometimes the creation can or even most of the times, you'll see that the creation basically bites the hand that feeds them, that fed them, or that created them, which is the scientist, right? So that's what the Talmud has done. The Talmud, or in Yoruba, Yugogo, right, took what we knew, what we gave them, because our whole premise was to go up there and civilize them out of their barbarianism. But we didn't understand. This is what Dr. Lalila Africa, he said, just because you civilize a snake does not mean that on down the line the snake is not going to be a snake. You know what I'm saying? No matter how good you train a snake to not bite you, it's going to bite you, because that's within his genetic coding. You know what I'm saying? That's why a lot of these pit bulls in the hood, you train the pit bull as much as you can, it's still gonna act itself, act its nature, because at its core, it's a canine. It's looking for food, for meat, right? And you so happened to be me at the time, right? So that was our intentions. But little did we know, just because your intentions is good does not mean it is good, right? Does not mean it's good. And we found that out the hard way. I mean, the hard way. They became ascended masters. Look at Age of Ultron with Ultron. He ascended his knowledge over Tony Stark, right? Which had him in result caused all that havoc over in overseas, over in Russia area and Slavic area, right? Right, all that area, right? Basically, world dominance, right? Basically, he wanted to create more artificial intelligence just like him, and have either the humans enslaved or exterminated, right? So, as I conclude this video, the Yacuub theory is no longer a theory. It is live and well. The Talmud is telling us in front of our faces what they have experienced and whom are their creator. All right? This is why it was so important. Now, and let me also say this too. Because me and my brother, we was talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! and how Yugi, from a white boy, whenever he needed to ascend higher to beat an opponent, he had to go back into to being a pharaoh, meaning he had to tap into the melanin side of his RNA or of his Akashic records to not only ascend, but to gain power to defeat his opponents. And his opponents were other ascended masters. Okay? Whom were what? White as well. You also see Merrick, right? He does the same thing, but he is depicted as the Sutek or the set side of Yami Yugi, right? When he ascends into his Nisubiti or his Pharaoh stage of ascension. So, and it's plethora of examples outside of Yu-Gi-Oh, but that's what me and my brother was talking about the other night. So, this is why it was so important for them when they came over in Africa, right? Particularly, for an example, the Greeks, the Hellenes. I call them the Hellenes, all right? Because they raised hell, all right, on us. They did. For that period of time that they reigned over in Kemet, all right? It was important for them when they came over, particularly the Ptolemies, not Alexander the Great, but when the Ptolemies came, right? The generals, the bloodline of the Ptolemies. Particularly, it started with Ptolemy Philadelphus. He was the one that desecrated majority of our temples and built the Greek temples or the Hellen temples over our shrines, right? Because they knew that in order to reign, they needed our source of power, our melanin, right? This is why over here you may run across some people, or you may even heard yourself, which is true, that a lot of these industrialized corporations were built on these Indian grave sites. True story, I was working last year at this warehouse, and this warehouse was built on top of the area of this Indian cemetery, this grave site, And this older man, whom I was working with, he said he would sometimes see, he said ghosts and spirits, right, of these people. I'm like, wow, that is amazing. That is amazing. So this is where they're harnessing their power from us. You know, and then it's no surprise. We all have heard of the Black Madonna. You know what I'm saying? And this is why they are in power still today. This is mainly the fact of why. Because they honor our ancestors. They honor our ancestors, our Sahu. Okay? They do. Right? And that's why, and they are manipulating. Not only did the Hellenes, okay, build their temples, their shrines. An example, the Library of Alexandria, over our temples, our shrines that we already had in store, in place, right? And they came and desecrated them and knocked them down. But the Ptolemies knew that they can not only harness this power, this melanin, but also manipulate. That's the key here. They're manipulating, they're playing with the melanin, they're playing with the carbon, because they know they cannot directly get the melanin, because they're not melanated beings. So they're bending it within their will to control and manipulate us, Africans, and the rest of their descendants. And their descendants are the Mongoloids, the Spaniards, right? The Greeks, right? The Indians, okay? The Arabs, okay? The Germs, the Germanic folks, the Vikings, the Scottish, the British, all those subtitles of their descendants fall upon under them. All right. So that's all I got for tonight, man. I gotta go and eat. You heard? I gotta eat my meal for the night. Like I said, I was ripping around and busy all day, so this is the only time I could be able to make this video and post this motherfucker. So listen, I appreciate you watching me tonight. You heard? Or whenever you're watching this. All right. So peace, hotep, and blessings to you all, Uncle Maat. All right. Ujah Sineb Neb. All right. Team Hotep. All right. To the African nation, populace, and diaspora. All right. Ashe.